Well, this week we had some technical issues which prevented us from getting all the video for our podcast. However, we have a really interesting conversation with a very impressive young professional realtor in the Stark County market named Autumn Zerbe. So I hope you'll stick around and at least give this a listen because what Autumn has to talk about is worth listening to. So let's take a listen together at the interview I had with Autumn. So today we are chatting with Autumn Zerbe from Cutler Real Estate. Autumn, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you, and I'm looking forward to learning all your dirty secrets.
Yes.
It's not that kind of podcast, but Autumn and I have known each other for almost a year?
Almost a year, yeah.
I knew right away when I met her, she was somebody that was different, special, and the reason I knew that is every time I saw her, she was doing something to serve other people in her community, and something it didn't have anything to do with, making more money or, she's excited about her business, and she's definitely, eager for success, I would say.
Yeah.
However, she never ever lets that become a greater goal than giving back to the community. So what drives that in you, Autumn? Like what drives you to really want to give back?
So I have had my, fair share of moments where I was in need or my family was in need growing up, and we were able to lean on the community to get through. So I think that's where a big part of it comes from. I'm not from Canton. I grew up in Daytona Beach, Florida, but this is my home now where I'm raising my kids. And so any way that I can give back or help make somebody's day, that's what I always look to do.
That's awesome. Well, you make a lot of people's day. Autumn's a lot of fun to be around. So if why don't we start out at the beginning? How did you end up in the real estate business?
Well, back in 2021, I started with leasing apartments through DeVille, and I loved it there. I've always talked about, getting my real estate license. And then in 2023 is when I decided to take that step another further, and got my license. And then I decided to go full-time selling in January of 2024.
Okay. And you've been at Cutler the whole time?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Like, what is it about real estate that really gets you excited?
So for me, real estate, home ownership, finances really wasn't something that my family talked about, which to me is crazy because with my kids, I'm always like, finances, you got to make good financial decisions. They also did not have finances in school when I graduated. They do now, so that's great. But I saw the struggles that my family went through with, moving from place to place. My mom had a house in Florida that unfortunately ended up getting foreclosed. My dad has never owned a home. So I look at that as an opportunity to help educate the community as well as my friends and family that this is possible. I actually ended up buying my first house when I turned 23, and me and my husband have already purchased our second house.
Good for you.
And then sold that property as well.
Okay. Do you have aspirations for real estate investing, or what is your?
So with me doing the renting and leasing, I thought maybe I wanted to have a rental property, and I did for a little while, but it's not something that I want to do again per se. I want to help people get investment properties. I'm happy to list anybody's rental properties, even help people find rentals. But I, on the other hand, do not want to be property management or a landlord.
No. Your family is very important to you because you talk about your kids all the time. You talk about your husband all the time. Why don't you share with us a little bit about your family and what your home life is like?
My home life is hectic.
Okay.
So I am a mother of two. My daughter is 13 and my son is 16. They're great kids. They have a great head on their shoulders. My 13-year-old can give me a little bit of a run for my money. My son actually was going to be going to the HVAC program through Canton South, so he was accepted in that his junior year coming up this fall. So I'm super excited about that. He is looking to go into trades, which I think is great opportunity.
Absolutely.
Especially nowadays, you don't really have a lot of people in those fields. So I think that's great. My husband, we've been together for 7 years, married for 2. He grew up in Akron and funny story. We actually met on Tinder, and it was just love at first sight.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I met my wife on Facebook dating.
Wow.
So yeah, she said that she was just there to find friends, and I said, well, no, you're not. So, but I tease her a lot about that. I say, "Are you glad you found a friend?"
Yeah,
So.
I think it makes a huge difference, like the way you connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of a little iffy on the whole Tinder thing, but he was actually the only person I met face to face off of Tinder. And it was only supposed to be like kind of how your wife said, a friend type companion, just somebody to talk to. And here we are, 7 years later, we're married, living together. And
Yeah.
yeah.
See, Tinder is not the place to just find a friend,
No.
honestly.
No, it's not.
But and I always tease my wife because it's literally called Facebook dating.
Yeah.
And she said she was there to find friends. So, but I'm certainly glad she went there to find friends. What was your first date with your husband like?
So we went to the movies.
What movie?
It's kind of funny. We really didn't watch the movie, so I can't even
Whoa.
remember. No, not like that. We talked the whole time and then ended up just leaving the movies early. So, yeah. And then right after that first date, it was so cute. I tease him, so if he sees this, he'll be really upset. But when I was getting ready to head back home, he said, "I'm sorry to bother you, but I just wanted to let you know I deleted the app. You don't have to." And I knew then.
The first date?
The
He deleted
first
the
date,
app.
yes.
Wow.
Yes. And I knew then that's my person.
That's awesome. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I think we had 4 dates or 5 dates before we deleted the app. But
Yeah.
yeah. So cool. Well, that's very cool. So what are some things you guys like to do together as a family?
So the kids are huge gamers, and so is my husband.
Okay.
So they'll play games. Even my dad will play games with them. So I'm not a huge gamer, so I struggled with this, but I have played like Diablo and stuff like that with them.
Okay.
I don't like that per se. But we love watching movies. We still go to the movies when we can. We have like family nights throughout the month. At least we try to. So bowling and stuff like that.
That's good.
Yeah, we try to go do. It gets a little crazy when they're in their extracurriculars, but
yeah. What kind of extracurriculars are the kids in?
right now, both of them decided to run track. So my daughter, she throws shot put and discus, and then my son, he runs. So it's been a little more hectic. He also is in the band.
Okay.
He has been playing percussion since 5th grade, so he's super passionate about that. And
Perry High School, right?
Yes.
Perry High Marching Band?
Yes.
That is no joke. My daughter was in Perry High Marching Band, and I know they are absolutely. As a matter of fact, yeah, that's one of the other things. You're always talking about band boosters and things like that, right? And
yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I am involved in the band boosters, and it really isn't a joke. I honestly had like a whole shock his freshman year on their schedule that they practiced during the summer.
Really?
I'm like, this is like a football schedule.
It is. It's like Hell Week, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I remember that when I played high school football, but second string JV, whatever. But I played. I had a obsession when I was younger of doing things people thought I couldn't do. So,
yeah.
So how do you balance? It sounds like you have a really healthy family life. It sounds like you and your husband have an amazing relationship. And it sounds like also, I mean, I know you have success in real estate. So how do you balance your real estate career with your family? I mean, that's a lot.
Well, this past year was a little bit of a struggle just because, starting out in real estate, it does take a lot of time. There are some days that are longer days, but I've worked on time blocking. My whole schedule has to be time blocked. So I sit down every Sunday night and I plan out my week and I block even down to when I'm doing my calls, because if I don't do that, then something's going to get missed. When I time block vacation, so we actually went on our first family vacation since 2019 in March.
Wow.
Yeah, so last year we kind of tried to do some vacations and stuff just kept happening. But I feel like the beginning of this year, I told my husband, I said, look, we're going to plan out all of our vacations and we're going to time block it. And then I'm going to stick with that. I do have great agents at Cutler who backs me up if I need, showings and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I take my iPad everywhere. So if I have to get back to something with email, then I will.
Yeah.
But I'll do it in the beginning of the day and then at the end of the day. So that way I'm still having that time. And it worked out great. I think that's what's really helped. My husband has been amazing with the kids. He works a schedule really early in the morning. So he's leaving the house at 4:15 in the morning.
Okay.
And then he gets off at 1:30. So he's able to do all the running. So it's kind of worked out that way. Even before I started in real estate, when I was at the apartments or before that, this is just the schedule we've had for like the past 5 years where I do the mornings, he does the afternoons, and we just make it work.
That's great. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
That it does.
That's what I always say. So what's one thing about Autumn Zerbe that might surprise people?
I took pre-law classes in high school.
Really?
I did.
Very cool. So did you do that under like a CCP program or?
It was similar to that. Yeah. It was through Daytona State College. And so I wanted to be an attorney forever.
Really?
I think more because I like to argue with people and get my point across.
I can see that.
Yeah.
You have that little bit of firecracker in you.
Yeah, maybe right? Just a little. Yeah. So I took the pre-law classes and I'm glad I did because it just was so boring. I was like, this is not going to work. I am not a person who can just follow the same thing every day. And that's one of the things I love about real estate. Every day is a new day and you have new challenges that you face. Every house, every client, they're all different.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of challenges, why don't you tell us about a time that you had a challenge in real estate and how you overcame it?
Oh boy. So I can connect with people very well, I feel like. But I think sometimes I get in my head and I'm like, I don't want to be mean and I don't want to come off rough. And so there are situations where I need to say no and I don't. And I've learned different personality types. So through Cutler, one of my mentors there does these classes, and he taught me all about personalities and knowing people's personalities and how to interact with them. It really has made a difference.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it does. When you understand that there's, and I think, it's good for every salesperson to get that kind of training where you realize that not every single, as a matter of fact, I'll quote Matthew Kelly here. Have you ever heard of Matthew Kelly? He's an author, excellent author. I've got several of his books over there. But one of the things that he said is that, your world expands when you realize that the entire world does not look like the world outside your front door.
Right.
And so when you have, when you have all these different viewpoints and all these different things people go through, and then they come to you and, sometimes we're so inside of ourselves and we don't take the time to step out and look at things from another point of view,
Yeah.
And that's one of the toughest things I think for everybody, no matter what business, whether as a parent, sometimes we have troubles with that, trying to see things the kids' way. It's like, are you kidding me?
I hear that.
Just right. Yeah, funny stuff. So, that's very important and very interesting. Okay, this one's a fun question. So, if you had a theme song, what would your theme song be?
Okay, so I am a huge SpongeBob fan.
Okay.
Like, I don't know what it is.
I'm interested to see where this is going.
I love SpongeBob. It's probably not the greatest thing to be old woman and loving SpongeBob, but I
think SpongeBob's incredible.
I do. So he has a song on one of the episodes that it's the best day ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like that would be my theme song because I try to take every day as the best day, no matter what I hit into.
That's a really great philosophy to have. And, it's cool because some people they can't take responsibility that way for how their day goes. Right. And, they're upset by the weather or they're upset by whatever comes their way that day. And they're constantly in reaction mode. And what actually a friend of mine owns a company it's an apparel company called Best Day of My Life. And every shirt that they make says "Best Day of My Life" on it. I think I have one upstairs somewhere. But the idea and the point was, if you wake up every day making today just a little bit better than yesterday in whatever way you can, then it truly will be the best day of your life, right?
Yeah.
Because yesterday was better than the day before if you did the same thing yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a really great philosophy, and it does, especially in a profession where, let's face it, you deal with a lot of highs and lows in the real estate business. I mean, I worked commission only for years, and I understand how that goes. And I've had salary jobs, I've had commission jobs. I know that sometimes it's easier to work those just straight salary jobs, and some people just aren't built for that, though, right? Talk about how when you knew you were going to go into a profession that was going to have ups and downs, right? How did you prepare for that?
So it was a lot of conversation with my husband. He has been the huge support for our family. Because like you had mentioned, commission, this is what this job is. It's commission based only. And so it really took us, it took a minute. I was scared to, fall into it full time. So I did, after I got my license, I tried to work at the apartment still and juggle real estate, but being there from 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, it was impossible. I feel like with the goals that I had set for myself and what I'm trying to do, because this is long term, this is my passion, this is my career, and to build that up, I had to just dive right in. And so of course I make a spreadsheet for everything.
Okay.
So I made, we went over like bills and pros and cons and where I want to be at and my goals and all that stuff. And we just kind of weighed it. And I said, I'm going to do this. And then if this does not work out, then we'll come up with a plan B.
Okay.
We had actually also sold our other house by then.
All right.
So we had all that we kind of put away, and we're like, okay, this is the rainy day fund if something were to happen. In having that cushion, because we did, just buy another house, and the first house I bought was cash, so I had no mortgage. So I was walking into mortgage.
You bought that at 23?
Yes.
You bought a house at 23, no mortgage, cash.
Yes,
purchase.
it was
That's
a foreclosed
amazing.
home, so it needed a lot of work,
Yeah.
and I just put my spin on it. It was a great first time home, and we're extremely happy at the house that we have now. So we went into having a house payment. So we're like, God, how is this gonna, work out? But my husband has been, the main support that I need, just kind of that reassurance, because I'll get in my head and I'll be like, oh my God, like I haven't had anything. Oh, the market's weird and it just keeps shifting and changing. And he just reassures me that anything that I put my mind to, I can do it, and I just keep moving. So I actually do also the ninja selling is what I use for my real estate. And they say pick a word of the year. And my word of the year is keep going, because if I get in my head and I'm like, oh gosh, I just tell myself to keep going. And then that's what helps drive.
Yeah. So ninja selling, I'm very, very familiar with that. So who's the teacher of that? Do you remember?
So Larry Kendall is the one who did the book,
right?
And then they have the podcast as well.
Yeah.
But he's not the one who does the podcast. I've listened to some of it, but the book is I just read it for a second time this year.
Well, a lot of our listeners are real estate agents, because that's it's people I work with. That's the audience that I tend to resonate with. So for those who have never been through the ninja selling course, why don't you share like 3 things you've taken away from the ninja selling course that would be like the gold nuggets that you would share first with somebody who's asking you, what did you get out of it?
I don't know if I have 3. I have one huge one is mindset.
Okay.
So, they talk about in the book about the mindset, how you want to be in the positive quadrants. You don't want to have a victim mindset.
Right.
Reading that, it's kind of like it opens up how has your mindset been and how can you fix that.
Okay.
They have you do like your daily gratitudes and affirmations every morning, which I do those. My affirmations I physically write down
Mm-hmm.
so I can see it on the page. But I feel like that right there, starting your day with that gratitude, your positive reading, your affirmations, that's how you're going to set yourself to have the best day ever. So our mornings are crazy. Me and my daughter do not like, we fight some mornings, and it's hard with a 13-year-old girl. And
Oh
like,
yeah,
we
I
just
know.
we just started a new system and it seems to be working better. But I know, like, if I don't do those gratitudes and affirmations and start my day off right, that is going to have more of a negative impact with her morning.
Sure. Yeah. That's even within that, you're saying, stay in this positive quadrant, and you're also acknowledging in that moment that what you just said acknowledges the fact that your attitude affects those around you
Mm-hmm.
as well. And that's really great. Now, I think that's probably one of the reasons why I know you shared with me at one point that you have aspirations to eventually be a manager, possibly
Possibly.
with in a real estate company. So that's I think that the fact that you understand those things, the fact that you do seem to be a lifelong learner,
Mm-hmm.
are definitely great traits that will lend themselves to success in leadership. And you mentor a couple people, right?
So I try to help out. I have there's an agent that I was meeting with every Tuesday to try and help
Mm-hmm.
any way that I can. So I know starting out in the business, first off, is hard. And I have my own mentors that I have, like a variety of people who have helped me along the way. So I've just tried to repay that and help any agents that I see with anything that I possibly can, whether it be a market analysis or, giving them that positive feedback on, okay, you can do this, keep your head in it, it'll come. Just tips with showing, open houses, anything that I can help with. I try to.
Okay. What is one tip you would give to a newer agent just starting out in the business?
I would say, yes, you have to put the time in for it to work, but don't forget to take time for yourself.
Okay.
Because I feel like sometimes as new agents, when we first come in, we're like, oh my God, we got to pick up this call. We have to send this email, no matter what hours of all day and night it
Right.
is. But it's okay to take time for yourself and your family. And I had to learn that the hard way last year.
Okay. So tell me about that. Last year, you say you had to learn that the hard way. So
Mm-hmm.
so you're saying you were kind of taking calls at all hours of the day
Yeah.
and answering texts at probably 11:30 at night and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're talking about? Because a lot
Yeah.
of agents struggle with that.
Yeah, and
And
that it kind of, especially when you have a family dynamic, you that's why I said, like, time blocking is huge, because you set up your days and your weeks on what you're going to set time for. So if I didn't do that, I would probably overbook and never make it to any of my kids' track meets.
right.
But I time block that, and I know when I have a starting point and I know when I have my end point, and it's okay to have that end point,
Hmm.
because someone calling you at midnight freaking out is not going to change the outcome the next morning.
It's not. You're right. You're really right. And somebody told me once, because Cutco can be similar. That we have
Mm-hmm.
customers that don't, that maybe push the boundaries a little bit once in a
Mm-hmm.
while of what's reasonable as far as the time of day they call, or how often they want to talk. But we want to make sure everybody feels like they've had
Mm-hmm.
attention. They feel like we're definitely getting to them. Um, where I was going with that was the in one of the management positions I was with Cutco. We had also recruiting younger people. Sometimes if you didn't set boundaries, they would call you anytime. They would text you anytime. They would get in touch
Mm-hmm.
with you anytime. And what somebody said once is people will treat you the way you've given them permission to treat you.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you make the boundary, they're not going to call you at 11:30, or you let them know at least in advance that that's not when you do business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you can set those proper expectations on the front end with them, and therefore you don't end up getting into that trap of, oh, I answered this call at 11:30, so guess
Mm-hmm.
what? Now they know that it's okay to call me at 11:30
Mm-hmm.
anytime, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that if you add those expectations, I haven't had any issues with my clients on that. They know
That's
up
good.
front. I do a whole buyer's consultation as well as seller's consultation. I like to meet in the office or even over coffee when we first start working with each other, because I want to get to know you. I want you to get to know me, and I want to make sure that this is the right fit. But I feel like during that consultation, if you do the right presets and expectations, then you won't have that issue to where they're like freaking out because they can't get a hold of you. People understand that you have family, you have other obligations, you have other clients. And as long as you're getting back to them at a good, timely manner, or give them that expectation. Like when I was on vacation, they knew I was on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
They knew they could still contact me.
Yeah.
It might take a minute for me to get back to them, and they could still see houses because I had people as my backup. But just like last year, my daughter had surgery. She had a full foot reconstruction.
Oh, wow.
And all my clients were completely fine with the one day that she was having surgery. You really couldn't get a hold of me because I'm like in the hospital. I'm waiting for her to get out of the operating room. It was a 4-hour surgery, so I was a mess.
Oh,
And
man.
they were completely fine with it. I have not ran into any issues with
That's
clients on
good.
that.
That's good. And has your daughter recovered well from that
She has.
surgery?
Yeah, she
So she's
has.
running track, right? You
Well,
said?
she's throwing this year.
Okay, yeah, that's right. You did say
Yeah,
that. So
running was a little bit difficult for her. But we went back to the surgeon and they did scans. It hasn't been a full year yet. So he says, you got to get used to it, because she, all summer last year, she was off her foot because she had to have pins in, then they took it out, and then she was still in a boot. But she is making a full recovery, and the
that's
scans,
great.
the last ones that we got, were, really good. And he said it's healing up great.
So is she expecting to run again in the future, or is she going to stick with more of the less foot intensive
Well, I think she's
events?
going to throw. She mentioned tennis, but
Hmm.
she's my my
That, in
one
my
kid.
opinion, would hurt your feet more than
That's
running.
what we told her. But my kids are like night and day.
Yeah,
Nathan, he when he does stuff, he sticks to it, and he's like, I'm gonna give it all my all for years on years. Like, he played soccer, and he probably did that for about 5 years, and he's been playing percussion, and now he's doing track. Kaylin, on the other hand, she doesn't stick with a lot of stuff. So we'll make her stick it out the season, because that's only right. You sign up for something, you need to know that you're obligated to fulfill what you signed up for. But sometimes she won't come back. So we'll see with her, because she definitely changes her mind a lot.
yeah. Well, and I think a lot of young ladies are like that. They're
Probably.
not. I don't want to use the word fickle, but fickle probably is a good
Yeah.
word, right?
Yeah.
They have different differing interests. They get excited about things.
Mm-hmm.
They get excited and emotional about things, and we get involved. And sometimes so that kind of is a nice segue into how we've kind of already talked. We've talked about your schedule and how you manage that.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things you use from a technology standpoint to uh, help your business run smoother?
Like systems wise.
Yeah, systems wise. Do you have any?
So we have like a database that Cutler sets up for you.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of my business in there. I check it every day. You set tasks. You can have your task go import to your Google Calendar.
That's good.
So I try to check it every morning so I can see what I need to do for the day. It also sends me like birthday reminders, anniversaries, when people have purchased a house with me, their home anniversaries. So that's like my system I go to, that I'm always in. I put my contacts and my clients in there. It makes it easier to keep track of everything in the long run with all the clients that I have.
It sounds like a pretty robust CRM system.
Mm-hmm.
Is what it really comes down to. That's good. CRM I think it's imperative in
Mm-hmm.
any business. I think local businesses that aren't using a CRM or finding some way to capture the information of people that come through their doors, they got to figure that out. They got to, because you have to
Right.
be able to, once somebody has connected with you and they know you and they at least like you, right?
Mm-hmm.
The sequence is always know me. We always say know me, like me, trust me, pay me, right?
Yeah.
And
Sounds
so
about right.
that's the, if you're gonna get somebody to work with you again in the
Mm-hmm.
future, you have to stay in contact with them. You have to, bring value to them long term. What do you
Yeah.
do? What kind of things do you do to bring extra value above and beyond what might normally be expected from a realtor?
So I don't have I because I just started last year. I had a couple like home anniversaries coming up, and one thing that I've learned through like Cutler and my mentors and stuff, it's nice to do like a market not really a market analysis, but like a real estate review for your clients when they close on those dates, just to keep them in the know of what's going on in the market. So lately, what I've been doing is, because I don't have that many clients that have closed, to where I have two every week. This also goes hand in hand with like the ninja selling.
Mm-hmm.
So I do a real estate review for my friends and family now, is what I'm doing, just to get them in the know of what's happening in the market, because it is changing. A lot has changed even from when I joined
Yeah,
the market.
this last
So
year
it's
has just been crazy.
yeah, so it's always changing. And I got so excited yesterday, actually, because shout out to one of our admins for showing me how to use this. We have this binder machine that we can make like a booklet. And another one of our agents tried to show me how to do it. And I just get so frustrated with stuff like that when I can't. But she had showed me yesterday how to do it. And so I put my real estate reviews in like a booklet form. I also use like Keeping Current Matters booklets for buyers, sellers, and first time home buyers. And I just was so excited with how it looked that the person I did the report for, I literally ran from the office to their work. Mind you, I'm showing up in the middle of the day just to say, hey, I have this for you, because I was just so excited. And she just loved it. She
Yeah.
loved all the statistics and everything. So, like, I do that for my clients. I also want to be that one-stop shop. So if you have any issues, like I tell my clients, let me know if you need a plumber, if you need a roofer, if your basement's wet, whatever the case may be, contact me and let me get you some names.
Okay. Well, sounds like you go above and beyond, and I think that that's going to serve you well in the long run with your clients. So, let me see here. So, one of the things that I've gotten to know about you is that you clearly love being in Perry. Am I right?
Yes.
You love Perry.
Yeah.
Which I can understand. I lived there, and my daughter graduated from Perry. So, tell me what it is that you love about Perry. What is it?
Well,
Did you graduate from Perry also?
I did not. No,
No.
because
Where did you graduate from?
from Mainland High School in
Oh,
Daytona
that's
Beach. Yeah.
right. Yeah, you
Yeah.
went down south. So did
Mhm.
you live in Perry before you guys moved down?
No. So we moved to Florida when I was like 2 or 3.
Okay,
So I really don't remember here
being here,
before.
right?
I mainly remember growing up in Daytona Beach. I have met some of my very closest friends that I have now just through Perry. Like one of my best friends, I met her through the band, and her son is actually one of my son's best friends. So
Okay,
like I the connections and the relationships is what I love the most. Like I
yeah.
really felt like that Perry really opened their arms. And I know every school has its drama and all that stuff. We know that.
We know for sure.
Yes. But I just feel like the people who I've met along the way, I've met some really amazing, people through Perry. So I definitely feel like that's my biggest thing. But another thing is that my kids love Perry. So I'm all about the Perry Panthers because my kids are.
There you go. Well,
Mhm.
that's good. That you have to be, to have your kids excited to be in the school they're in. That's a big deal. I switched schools 14 times in 12
Mhm.
years because I moved around and moved back and forth with mom and dad and all that kind of stuff. I might not put this might get cut out.
Mhm.
I don't get into a lot of personal stuff on the podcast, but um, it, one of the things I wished I had was the roots
Mhm.
at a school. You know what I mean? Because every time I would go to the new school, we get to make some new friends
Mhm.
and new enemies, right? And so it was an
Yeah,
interesting thing.
we were with Canton City before we moved to Perry. And don't get me wrong, I loved AIM Academy. So my kids actually started with AIM Academy, the all year round school that they have at Canton City when they first started. But then they took 7th and 8th grade out, and it was like, where are they going to go now? And so Nathan actually did 7th grade at the early college at Lehman.
Okay.
So he started out there. And when we were looking for houses, we wanted to stay in Canton City because we wanted the kids to continue to go there. But, it's like when you walk in these houses. So, with me and my husband, when we bought our house that we're in now, we probably looked at 30 or 40 different houses. We put in a couple offers. And of course, like everybody else, we were outbid. We had moments where we felt like this was never going to happen. And I think that's part of the reason why like I can connect really well with my clients because I've been there. I know how you feel.
Sure.
We started looking the end of 2021 and we did not close on our house until August of 2022.
Wow.
So it took us a while to find the perfect home.
Yeah.
But when you walk into that home, you know that this is it. This is perfect. This is where I want to be. I want to raise my kids here. And
Right.
that's the feeling we got. And the house ended up being in Perry. So I did try to see if he could stay at the early college, and he could not. We were a little nervous because he was going to Perry in 8th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and he had been in Canton City for all this other time. So he was
Sure.
leaving his friends. Kaylin, we weren't really nervous as much with her because she was going into 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And with the intermediate school,
Yeah,
that's
Edison.
when all the
Right?
kids,
Yeah.
5th and 6th is in, not Edison, it's Pfeiffer.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Piper, and then
Yep.
which
Edison
one?
is 7th and 8th.
Okay, yeah, Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
been a few
So,
years for me. My
right.
daughter's now 22, so
Yeah. So we weren't, worried about her as much, but with Nathan, we were a little worried, but he just blossomed. We saw him come out of his shell. He made so many friends. He's just doing amazing, and he's super excited to get into the HVAC program as well.
that is
So even though it's through Canton South, I don't know if he would have had that opportunity had he was going somewhere else.
great. Sure, yeah. And if he was in an early college, and now he's choosing trades instead of,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure he could still go to college if he wanted to, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting because nowadays it seems like I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. It feels like there's so many young people who they graduate college
Mm-hmm.
and then they end up with a job that's not even
In their field.
in their field, and oftentimes it's less than they expected to make, and now they're paying back a huge student loan.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that's one of the reasons why I'm involved in my kids and my business, because I feel like one of the best things hands down that anybody can learn is sales.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you know how to sell, you can pretty much get a job, any job you want if you go in and you sell yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that your kids are being set up very well for success because they got a mom who's a ninja seller, right?
Yep.
and a dad who is more in if I understand correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Mm-hmm.
more in the blue collar sphere,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Which is what HVAC would be, kind of that type of thing. So yeah, very cool. I think that's a great balance. So let's see here. Are you enjoying this?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you've said a lot of the things you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think this has been great. I'm not nervous like I thought I was going to be.
Well, that's good. Why do you think that is? Why do you think you're not nervous?
I think you definitely set this up to be more so I'm used to doing videos that, like, when I first started out doing videos, I was so intimidated because I'm like looking at the camera, I'm trying to record it myself, and I'm like, oh my God, let me retake this. I said this wrong. I did this wrong. Now, when I do videos, I have someone else record it.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to do only one shot, because if I do one shot, then or more than one shot, then I'm thinking too hard about it and I know I'm going to mess up. But if I do one shot, I say, okay, this is it. I'm going to get my point across, and that's how, I feel more comfortable. So with this podcast, it's like I'm saying it one time. I don't like scripts. I all my videos, I kind of just free for all.
That's good.
I just think of kind of what I want to say, and then I say it.
Yeah, I have now. There's a few things that when I speak, I feel like I have to have it, prepared and written out or whatever, especially if I'm under time constraints. But I think that's one of the beauties of doing video is that you can record it, and if, like you said, that's a really good point because there's a service that I used to use, and I'm not going to put this in the video because I don't want to promote them, but Bomb. Have you heard of Bomb?
Mm-mm.
So they're very similar to like Dub, but
Okay.
they just don't have. They're a little different as far as their functionality goes, but they have a book that they wrote, and I always consume whatever I can learn about the subjects that I'm into, and when I started doing video, the it's called Rehumanize Your Business, and how using video changes things because now you're face to face with people, so to speak.
Yeah.
They're looking at you and connecting with you versus just reading words. And it talked about that very thing. Don't go back. Don't go back and look at it. You made it. Throw it in the can and send it out.
Yeah.
Because if you go back and you watch it again and again and again, you're just going to keep finding the little faults that mean nothing to anybody else but you, right?
Yeah.
And then so that's a really good point.
Yeah. So I'm part of the chamber, of course, because that's where we met. But I also do a lot with Weiss Stark through the chamber. And
yeah, talk about that.
Well,
Tell me about Weiss Stark.
I will. I'll tell you about Weiss Stark. But there is this really great guy who is in there. He is a sales coach. So like he helps your business if people don't know what you are. He helps get that point across, or they know what you are and they're not paying, then there's something going on, or if you need help with your team. So he is actually the one who encouraged me, just do those videos, get out there, record it once, put it on there, it'll work out. And so he definitely was one of them who like pushed me to do more recordings. And also he did say about how sometimes with your business, you want to make it more personable, especially with real estate, because no one wants to like buy something from somebody that they don't know, like, and trust. Like you said, They want to be able to relate to you. Yes. So that is another thing, like with social media. I actually did not have social media before I got my license. So I just got social media in 2023.
Wow.
So learning all those different platforms and everything has been a little bit of a challenge, but I'm getting through it. And that's one thing that I had to learn, was that I can't just post about business. I need to be more personable along with the business so they can get to know me more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of people that, when I go, that my clients tell me, keep posting those pictures with your kids, and they love that. So I agree 100%. They want to know you're a human being, and it makes it makes it more comfortable to do business with you.
Yeah.
Right. So talk about Weiss Stark. Let's talk about that for a minute. You're super involved in Weiss Stark. I know you guys, by the way, is Weiss Stark, I know it's a young professionals organization. Does that mean only young people can come?
No. So I know that that's kind of the talk about it. They do advertise 20 to 40, but you don't have to be young to come to any of the meetups or anything like that. Like Weiss Stark, the whole point that I really see, at least my vision of Weiss Stark, is helping grow the young professionals in Stark County. Okay. So there's different things that are involved with Why Stark. Like we have the YP meetups that are kind of like the business after hours.
Mm-hmm.
That is normally 5 to 7 or 6 to 8 fun activities, stuff like that we try to do. You know, we've done stuff from going to Condado Tacos. We did axe throwing, like stuff like that to try and engage the young professionals with the fun side. But then we also have sunrise sessions every Tuesday morning from 8:30 to 9:30 that it's kind of like the tip club. You do your 30 to 60-second commercial. We do success stories, announcements, but then we also have different things like inside speakers inside the group. We have outside speakers. We've done service projects through there. We also are looking to do workshops and coffee chat days. So it's just a different element of, you know, getting to know the young professionals in the area and how can I help support your business.
Okay. So old guys like me can come and visit, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Good. Yeah, that is a big misconception about the young professionals groups is that they're, you know, you'll get run out of there if you're not under 40, right? So let's see here. I mean, we're kind of coming up on 2:30 here, and so I'm going to try to wrap this up. Um, if you had a new customer, let me see. I think I have a question here that I know I wanted to ask for sure. For someone who has never, well, let's do this. What advice would you have right now for a new homeowner? What's one thing you would want them to know about the experience they would have with you? Somebody who's a first-time home buyer, okay? They've never purchased a home before, and you know that can be. I mean, you bought one at 23, so you know most people aren't buying their first home at 23. But you know, what would you say to that? You would give if it's a piece of advice you would give them. Let me start this over. So, if you had a first-time home buyer who came to you today and said, "Autumn, two questions. Number one, what's one piece of advice you would give me about buying my first home? And number two, why should I work with you?"
Those are some great questions. So that's when I would say, let's meet, let's go over, you know, the process and let's do our buyer's consultation. One of the biggest things that I think is the most important piece to purchasing a home is a pre-approval, because you need to know what you can afford, what type of lending it's going to be, and, you know, basically how much home. Because what you don't want to do is before you get that pre-approval, you don't want to start looking at homes and going to see them, because we have to have a pre-approval to put an offer in or proof of funds. And you don't want to look at something that is 300,000 and you can afford 180, which there are some great houses that is in that price range, you know, where depending on where you want to be at, but there's a huge gap of what kind of elevation of a home you're going to get in those different price range.
Sure.
So I'll say that, you know, if you're looking to purchase a home, and it's your first time go around, connect with a really great realtor. For me, I would say my biggest thing is I'm going to be right by your side through the whole process. So I have done buyer's consultations. That is one thing that I implemented when I first started my business. And I've sat with some really great people that now, like when they first came in, they had no idea how real estate worked. They didn't know what they were looking at.
Sure.
And I have like all my presentation, my folder, my booklet and stuff that I lay out for them. And one of the biggest pieces is I go through the flow of how this is going to be from start to end. And don't worry, because I'm going to be right there by your side through the whole process.
Very
so good. You know, and then if they don't already have a lender, then I definitely try, you know, I will connect them with lenders in the area, local lenders. And that's another thing I feel like it's really important to work with local lenders, because when stuff happens, you have to have that communication.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us and listening to this conversation with Autumn. I hope you got some value out of it. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We would love to have you as a subscriber, and when you like and share this video, it really helps us get the word out. If you're a business owner or professional in Stark County who would like to be featured on the Brainy Branding Podcast, then please fill out the form at the link below in the description, and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. If you're out of our market and you'd like to do it via Zoom, we can do that too. Be happy to interview you by remote. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week and every Thursday at 3. Thanks.